Um, so as I've been like doing research on how to use data to drive instruction, I really like tried to look at how does it impact the individual student. Like, so you give everybody an assessment, you take that assessment, and then you look at, maybe you group them into high, medium, low categories, and then you for the low students that need more work in that area, you take them into a small group and explain the concept or the directions in a different way to help them master the concept. Is that the basic nuts and bolts of
for it? Yeah, I think that you can use assessment to drive instruction in different ways. Obviously, any information and any data you get, you're going to see what the kids know, what their interests are, what kind of support they need. You're going to find out what you need to do as the teacher. You know, what's really nice about it is when you give different kinds of assessments, you can see where the holes are. And oftentimes, which is a problem many teachers have, they say, oh my gosh, the whole class didn't understand about negative numbers. Well, if the whole class doesn't understand about negative numbers, it's something that the teacher needs to deal with in terms of instruction, which is really nice. But a lot of teachers, at least ones I've talked to and stuff, even myself, I'll go, oh my gosh, no one understood this. Well, what's wrong with them? Instead of what's wrong with me? What's wrong with how I taught it? So that's a really nice way to do it. I think that when you use data for, or testing data for like small groups, let's say, you can use them for different things. You can use them for, leveling, like say for reading. You might have reading groups. You might have a group that's reading. You might have a group that doesn't know any letter sounds and has a really weak phonemic awareness. You might have kids, in the middle. So you could group that way. And that way, for the, scholars that need more support, you can give them more support. And the scholars that are ready to fly, you can give them more enrichment. And you can do that for different subjects, which is nice. You can have your math groups. You can have your reading groups, things like that, based on, their scores, based on what they know, where their holes are. You can also have small group instruction from data in terms of their interests. Maybe, you want to find out, who's really interested in the water cycle and who's really interested in just something else. So you could put them in terms of grouping for different projects, which we've done before too. You can also put them in groups of different levels so that the scholars are inspiring each other and helping each other in ways that are different than just all the high kids together, or all the low kids together, or all the kids that know how to read and all the kids that don't, things like that. So you can really use data to break up small groups in so many different ways. It's not just a high, medium, or low. Also, like just in phonemic awareness alone, you can see what the scholars know, those who are not blending, those who are not segmenting, those who are not rhyming. You can put those kind of groups together too. And it really helps for me to know what they need. To actually go through. Different kinds of assessments, though. You've got your, pre-assessments, let's say before you, like in the beginning of the year, we did a pre-assessment so we could see where they even were. Did they even know what numbers were? Did they even know what letters were? Things like that. That helps us to see.
Is that what they call the baseline?
Yeah, like their baseline. It helps us to see, just who they are and what they are. And we can do that in many different ways. You can do that with more of an informal observation, taking notes. You can do that with charts, like a what you don't know chart. Doing it with the scholars, seeing what they know and what they don't know. You can obviously do a written test or on the computer test or whatever.
Have you done that before, where you've taken the whole group and said, okay, how many of you know this? Or
yeah, and it's more of not so much let me write down who knows what, but, we'll do like a what you know, what you don't know on a graph or on a chart on the board, and then afterwards I'll go back and take notes. Most didn't really know, they didn't know what I was talking about when I talked about this concept, and then just take notes. Yeah, so that's a good way to do it too. You can Also for like older kids, maybe a self-evaluation. What do you tell me what you know about, these things or this checklist or things like that. Writing, like a journal or
Right.
a writing assignment. Tell me all you know about matter. And then you can kind of get to see what they know. So it doesn't have to necessarily always be a paper pencil test. You can do lots of, different kinds of tests to see where they are. Then during your instruction, or your unit or whatever, or your grouping or whatever, it's always good to have assessments throughout, kind of see what they're doing, how's it going. Then it'll drive your objectives and your lessons a little differently. Maybe you thought nobody really got this concept and they all did, and you're like, well, we don't have to spend much more time on this, let's move on to here. Or you have small groups that you started because of your pre-assessment, and then you're going through the concepts and you're thinking, wow, these groups are totally changing now because of, learning going on and motivation and inspiration and things. So then you maybe revamp your groups, and each group maybe has a different focus, whatever that need is. And then you're going to have your, obviously your summative assessments at the end of whatever you're doing, at the end of a unit or whatever, to see what they learned from the beginning. So there are different types of assessment, and the different assessments can help you throughout, let's say, making small groups, and even how the small groups change through time.
So at the end of the when you do your summative assessment, at that point, do you go in and you look at the scores, or you look at the observation? Now, for kindergarten, is it just a simple matter of they do state tests? Yes.
Not kindergarten, not first grade. I think it starts in second grade now, second or third grade now.
Okay.
So what we're doing in kindergarten is really building that basic foundation.
Yeah.
So because if they don't get the foundation in K1, 2, they're not going to be able to take a test in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and up, because or a state test. They won't have the skills. We need to give them all the background in kindergarten for all the phonemic awareness, all that ready to read, the reading readiness, and then those who are starting to read, we continue with that. And then first grade, they learn to read, and then second grade, they're really starting the strategies and the just the different aspects of reading, the comprehension, the fluency, all that stuff. So if we don't do our jobs down here, then state assessment is gonna, and I don't know, I have a problem with state assessment. I mean, it's so cut and dry, and well, your child is this because they did this on this day on this test. There's so many more things. Like I was saying, you could take writing is an amazing way to assess what a child knows and what they feel and what their interests are. So for me, that something like that would be more important. But I know the state has to do their stuff. But so we don't test in K1, 2.
So if you were to give a summative assessment, what would you do?
For kindergarten, it would probably be like a writing thing, some kind of writing assignment, or a simple small group thing. We've done it, we have done it. We had pictures of like the presidents, right? And we taught all about the presidents, and then we had pictures of the 5 most important presidents that we taught about. And so we asked them questions. Who was the president? Who was the 44th president? Who, or whatever. Who was our first president? Who helped build national parks? And then they would circle the face of the president. Things like that. You can do that simple with pictures and circling. If you want to do more of a paper pencil summative assessment, we do those all the time. And we don't usually do any kind of major assessment like that until later in the year for kindergarten. But we do every quarter, report cards, and those grades from their assessments go, factor in for their grade. But we want to see where they are in terms of the phonograms we've taught them, the numbers we've been doing, if they're writing them correctly, things that we've been teaching. But that's more for giving them a grade, which is what our school says you have to do.
Right. And so have you ever had the experience of you've taught them the information, and then they're just, the whole class as a whole, like they just are not picking up on it, so then you have to go back and like reteach
and change my plans, because you have to have a plan. My plan was to move on, but now we're scrapping that, and I'm going to reteach it in a different way, because the first way didn't work.
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I'm going to reteach it in a different way. I'm going to bring out more visuals. I'm going to bring out more hands-on. Because that's really, if a scholar can teach someone the concept to someone else, that's the best way to remember.
Right.
So if we can get more small groups going, and I would, you know what I mean, I would change it. Whatever I did the first time, I would add to it and change it more.
Have you ever had the experience of where you've just stumped? Like you've taught the concept and you thought you did all. And then do you just go and collaborate with other teachers and say, hey, I'm really stuck?
Absolutely. I would definitely talk to the other teachers. I would definitely, especially those in my grade level who maybe have taught the concept before, or a mentor teacher, an older experienced teacher where I'd say, this didn't work. What should I do? I would even Google, just with the technology we have today, Google more ideas about that concept, find more literature about it, just finding different ways that I can make that concept stick.
Okay. I'm going to push